Hi, folks. Welcome back. The last couple of stories we've been discussing theme, which is the overarching idea of a story. These last two pieces of fiction we've been reading explore the theme of women's rights, particularly in the 19th century. Of course, Charlotte Perkins Gilman and Kate Chopin were members of authors in the first stages of first wave feminism here. This is a movement that swept America in the 19th and 20th century. We're up to third wave feminism now. Kate Chopin's work explored the relationships of women and their place in society at the time, which oftentimes was less than pleasant. She offers a frank view of marital infidelity, of interracial relationships. Her novel, The Awakening, dealt with these themes. And unfortunately, the society at large wasn't ready for it. She met sharp criticism for her depictions of these themes, and it unfortunately ended her literary career. She wrote no more novels after that. She did write short stories, this one being a hefty 2 pages at full length, but yet contains an incredibly dense portrait of Mrs. Mallard's marriage and her life, and really explores what women's lives were like at the time. Mrs. Mallard likely patterned after Kate Chopin herself. Kate Chopin's husband died when she was only 32 years old. She never remarried, deciding instead to raise her 6 children on her own. Chopin utilizes a lot of writing tools here, not just theme, but also foreshadowing in the very first line there. We're told that Mrs. Mallard has a heart condition. The use of symbolism, when she learns of her husband's death, she looks out the window. She's sitting in this armchair in a room upstairs all by herself and looks out the window and sees the burgeoning spring beginning out there, which is symbolic not of just spring itself, but of her new life coming to light here. This life where she won't be burdened by a husband, won't have to live for or under the dictates of Mr. Mallard. Her reaction from the beginning is not the denial of her husband's death, as theorized by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her 7 Stages of Grief, but ultimately immediate acceptance. She, of course, bursts into tears. She's upset by the news, but then she goes upstairs and experiences this building sensation, which is not sorrow, but joy. Now, of course, with anything new, any new frightening sensation, anything that comes upon you like that, she's filled with anticipation at first. She is nervous about it, and finally she realizes, no, this isn't terror, this isn't fear, this is joy. And she sees that her life from here on is going to be, free. She keeps saying again, free, free body and soul, free. And the sad thing, we know that Brent Lee Mallard was not a cruel husband. He wasn't unkind to her. In fact, she says in the text, and which is over here to my left, he goes, yet she had loved him sometimes. Often she had not. He wasn't an unpleasant man. He wasn't a cruel man. But clearly he wasn't her ideal husband. And given the social mores of the day, even if she could find such a man, it might be difficult and most likely impossible that they could put together a marriage. So many of them being financial arrangements as much as social arrangements. And a woman had less say in the matter than a man. Now, a woman who was unmarried in the 19th century had a pretty slim set of career prospects. She could be a school mom, she could be a school teacher, a seamstress, a secretary perhaps, or a factory worker. Whereas a woman who was married, became in many ways the property of her husband. But a widow, she would be free to handle her husband's business affairs, her late husband's business affairs, as the executor of his estate. She could do business. She could conduct herself. She could do in whatever way she chose. She could decide to remarry or not. Yeah. And so this is what Mrs. Mallard is faced with. She goes, after the initial shock of his death, she realizes, I'm going to be free. I can do anything I want. And she looks at her life and says, oh, please let it be a long life. Whereas the day before, she had dreaded the possibility of living a long time under the tyranny of marriage, as she saw it anyway. And so, of course, we have the foreshadowing at the beginning of the story, with the author telling us that she has a heart condition, and everyone and her sister and her friends are there to kind of shield her from the news and break it to her easily and gently, so as to keep her from having a major cardiac event. And so her sister says, look, you gotta come down from there. You're gonna make yourself sick. What's going on? And she's speaking at the keyhole here. And she says, no, I'm not going to make myself sick. And notice the way that that Chopin portrays her coming down the stairs. She wrapped her arm around her sister's waist and came down like Nike, the goddess of victory. And so there it was. At that moment, the door is unlocked, and in walks Brinley Mallard. Her husband's friend tries to shield her from his view, but it's too late, and she dies of a heart attack. And then Mallard delivers this beautiful irony at the end. The doctor, who is of course male, pronounces that her death, a death by the joy that kills. That her heart was so shocked and so surprised to see her husband alive, so that onrush of joy killed her, which is this wonderful piece of brilliant dramatic irony, because we, the readers, know that it wasn't joy over her husband's appearance, but rather the sudden shock of realizing that this beautiful future that laid out in front of her has now been snatched away because he wasn't on the train when it crashed. He wasn't one of the people killed. Right. So what do we do with the story? Wonderful story, actually. It talks about, and this is fiction as an instrument of social change. Right. This kind of woke people up, and people began to understand, okay, well, maybe things aren't so great here in our society. Much in the way that the yellow wallpaper caused Dr. Weir Mitchell to stop doing the the rest cure as a treatment for postpartum depression. Okay, I'm not sure what impact this had on relations between men and women, but it certainly did shine a light on how a lot of women felt within the confines of their marriage here. Okay, so amazingly powerful story for 2 short little pages. All right, so that's the story. Hope you enjoyed Story of an Hour, and I'll see you next time.